It's been 35 years since Super Mario Bros. Was released on the Nintendo Entertainment System, and since then, Mario has come in so many different games. It's kind of amazing to think there are still genres Mario hasn't been featured in, but this week Nintendo crossed another one off the list, and it's probably the most unexpected, the Battle Royale. Okay, well, maybe it's not that surprising considering the continued success of Tetris 99 and the fan-made Mario Royale that Nintendo shut down earlier this year. Despite all that, I'm always interested in trying Nintendo's experiments, and Mario 35 does seem to be an ambitious one. The basic setup is you and 34 other players all have your own version of Super Mario Bros. To play through, and your goal is to be the last Mario standing. Of course, it's nowhere near as simple as just being the best player, nor is it even about being the fastest. Everyone has their own timer, which has much less time on it compared to your average Mario stage. To get more time, you need to defeat enemies. You also get time for collecting extra items and reaching the end of the stage. Though you don't have time to rest, you are immediately thrown into the next stage. So what? A simple race against the clock? No, of course not. There is even more chaos that makes this interesting. When you defeat enemies, you send ghostly versions of them to other players. You choose the targets through 5 different options: a random player, the player with the most coins, the player with the least amount of time, players targeting you, or a target you manually choose with the left stick. While these may seem random, you will start to realize that through targeting the right players, you can get very strategic. Try getting many people to target you so that you can turn around and target everyone. Just as you are getting a star, then send all the enemies their way. You can also keep your eye on players that may be struggling, choose them manually, and then beat Bowser and send them a real challenge. Just remember, they could target you back and send whatever you sent them right back to you. There were times while I was playing I had 4 different people throwing trash at me, and it was so stressful, but extremely exciting. When an enemy you send out manages to kill someone's Mario, you get credit for the KO, which means you get all their coins. There may be more advantages to getting KOs, but I'm still learning more about the game. Besides stomping Goombas, the other thing to do in Mario is collecting coins. Obviously, there are no extra lives in this game, but for every 20 coins you get, you can use the item roulette, which gets you anything from POW blocks to stars to fire flowers. And while early on you may be thinking, I don't need to use the roulette, I could just get these items from in the level. But let me tell you, when there are hundreds of enemies flooding a level, it can be tough to get those items. Now, it's worth mentioning, none of this is explained in the game. There is no tutorial or explanation of the game's deeper mechanics. It's almost insulting that under the how to play section, they just have the controls to Mario 1. Though, because I spent a good amount of time with Tetris 99, I did have a pretty good idea of how to play already. There are a lot of little things about the game I still don't fully understand. I've put about 6 hours in, but I still struggle to understand the way the level select works. When you load into a new game, you have a couple options. You can use your overall collected coins to buy a power-up, which, to be honest, I think is a strange idea, not quite pay to win, but still gives players an early advantage. Secondly, you can choose a stage from the stages you've managed to reach the flagpole on. I assume that since 35 players are all picking levels, they are put into a list and one is randomly chosen as the next level everyone will go to. There were many games I played where I would just bounce between 1-1 and 1-2 over and over and over again. And while that's fine, it can make the game feel really repetitive. The game gets the most interesting when you have bloopers and cheap sheeps showing up where they shouldn't, or even 3 Bowsers attacking you in 1-2. These moments are really harrowing and will keep me coming back for more. I still haven't seen Hammer Bros or Lakitu because people just haven't gotten that far yet, but I'm sure with time, the levels will get much more diverse. My biggest issue with the game is that it seems like the time limit is pretty meaningless. You get so many enemies thrown at you, it's almost impossible to run out of time. Most of the enemies you are seeing are Goombas and Koopas, so they are really easy to get around. And if you have a fire flower, it's way too easy. However, when you start introducing random piranha plants that can block exits or other enemies you don't expect to see in 1-1, it can really make things interesting. As mentioned before, I think it's almost impossible to lose by running out of time if you are good enough at the game. But I even think extra enemies coming on screen can make it difficult to lose as well. Almost every time I died was a result of playing the game poorly. Obviously, little platforming mistakes can be attributed to feeling overwhelmed by the waves of enemies on screen, but usually it was just dumb stuff resulting in me rushing too fast. Worth mentioning too, that since the game was just released and most games stick to the first few worlds, that it will get a lot harder and probably more fun as people unlock more levels that get thrown into the mix. I'm sure people are most comfortable with the early stages of Mario, but even I don't remember what kind of levels show up in, say, World 5, for example. Besides jumping into the normal 35-player battle, you can also do limited time special battles that are limited time only. These seem to have pre-selected levels, power-ups, and more, which is a cool idea to give players something they can grind on that stays consistent. There is also a course practice, which at first I smugly thought, well, I could just play Super Mario Bros. On the NES to practice. It's almost better to practice this way though, because you just select the levels you want to practice, rather than playing the normal Mario Bros. Game. The game also has daily challenges that give you lots of coins, things like defeating a certain number of enemies, using power-ups, clearing courses, and a lot more. Now, my biggest thought in playing Super Mario Bros. 35 is that the original Super Mario Bros. For NES is still an incredible game. Running and jumping through these stages is still very fun, and the extra stress of people throwing tons of enemies at you makes it even more fun, if a little stressful. It seems Nintendo put a lot of work into this thing, and was very thoughtful with how it worked. I do think there are flaws in this concept, at least at the time of this review. There would be games I'd play where it's just me and another person throwing enemies back and forth playing for a long time, cycling through the same levels. The only reason the game would end is because I'd make a platforming error. It just starts to feel like a game of endurance versus a game of skill. I think another thing that makes Mario 35 less impressive is the existence of Super Mario Maker. Obviously, seeing 3 Bowsers at the start of 1-2 is hilarious, but people have been making wacky Mario levels for 5 years now. The final thing I will mark against Mario 35 is the weird limited availability Nintendo has put on it, just like the 3D Mario All-Stars collection. I don't understand why Nintendo wants to do this, and I think it's highly anti-consumer, but I guess if it's popular enough, they might just keep it available longer. Especially because I can imagine them doing so much more with this game. Maybe adding Lost Levels stages to the game. Maybe even mixing it up with Mario 3 or Super Mario World levels. They already did the work in making all these games fit together in Mario Maker, so I'd love to see them do even more with that idea. That all may seem like a lot of negativity, but overall I do really enjoy this free little game. I highly recommend at least checking it out. It's very easy to get stuck in the one more game mentality. They managed to take this 35-year-old game and force me to think of it in new and exciting ways, and that alone makes Super Mario Bros. 35 extremely impressive.